Righto, here we go again. Saturday afternoon, small handful of four TASA people and one bloke that isn't a TASA person or TASA people. So we've got Jody on today. Jody can talk, and he's warned us already that he can talk and will talk, and we're eager to hear what he's got to say. And so we're just going to kick it off and see where the whole thing ends up. I think that's the easiest way. We've got no agenda, no menu, no nothing. We're just freewheeling. So, Jody, you might give us a bit of an introduction about what you do, why you do it. Just a short one, like a few minutes, whatever. Go for it, mate.
Just sound a horn when you're ready. That's enough to go. "Mwah." Most people who've got any form of social media would have seen me at some stage. Uh, Completely asleep. Coal miner, 100 kilo alpha. Front row footballer. Underground coal mining sort of meathead, capitalist atheist at best 6 years ago. Going through massive amounts of mental health issues, as what I realise now was the planet sort of shaking me awake. COVID hits, become a talking head, whinging like the rest of them about what someone had done to me. Somewhere along the line, people were challenging me because I didn't know Constitution, I didn't know Magna Carta, I didn't know common law, I didn't know international law, I didn't know legalese, and so year by year, month by month, I agreed that I didn't know anything about what was being taken away from me. So I'm always up for a good debate, but my trauma from my stepdad in my life made me always have to make sure I knew exactly what I was talking about before I spoke in front of him. Otherwise, it would be the entire message would be torn to pieces. So the best part of me was the worst part of me, which was I make sure that when my mouth's open, I've done some homework and I can back it up with whatever fact I need to pull forth. So my trauma actually helped me be a better speaker for this. So here I sit 5 or 6 years later, completely different, changed human being in every sort of facet of my life. Walking around today at an Emerald Gemfields crystal show, talking to people about how good selenite is, and wearing my copper protection products that while giving people some schooling on orgonite pyramids. So the people are, and 3 years alcohol free this last month. So you know things can change different quickly in a world where you actually are the change instead of waiting for it. And we talked about that before. So
Yeah, you've done a bit in 6 years, and 3 years alcohol free. Does that imply that there was a lot of alcohol being drunk prior to that, or,
no,
or you just
no,
decided
I
not
was
to do it?
I worked 7 days on and 7 days off, but back in my stress days, I was 5 days a week. Um, High functioning anxiety person, massive anxiety, weekly panic attacks that were getting more likely, depression in one hand, anxiety in the other. The only thing that gave me any real relief was a Friday night getting drunk, smashing at least a carton of beer without even blinking an eyelid in one sitting, having a good hangover day on Saturday because I don't get anxiety when I have a hangover, and then worrying about what Sunday would bring afterwards. So my one day of relief, maybe a fortnight, a day, a week, or a fortnight, depending on what roster I was on, was alcohol. Um, but I didn't stop drinking alcohol, and caffeinated soft drink was a bigger crutch for me. I drank 2 or 3 cans of that every day of my life since I was probably 17 years old. Um, the I just started a, a situation where I said, what is my body actually asking for? And then what is the cultural environment around me tell me that lie to me that that really is? So on a Friday night when I've been running a crew of 70 people in an underground mining environment, high risk, lots of money, massive stress, lots of phone calls, and sleepless nights and long days. My body wasn't asking on a Friday night for 24 beers. It was asking for 2 glasses of water and go to bed at 8 o'clock and try and get 10 hours sleep. And so I just found that if I started actually listening to my body more often and then letting the programmed response tell me what escapism tool I needed to lie to myself that the life I was living was one that was aligned with my heart and my soul, I found quickly that I actually didn't need alcohol because I didn't want to escape my life anymore because I've got a great life.
Yeah, it's all about awareness, isn't it? Once you become aware that there's something wrong, or that maybe you should do something about it, or maybe you should, change your life yourself instead of reacting to everything around you. It can make a lot of difference. But you you must have done a heap of learning in the last few years. If you 6 years ago you were sound asleep and knew bugger all, and I have seen a
I
few
am.
videos, so you've done a bit.
Well, look, we were trying to calculate the maths on it. We believe that if you press play on Facebook and my videos played back to back, it would take over 3 weeks for them to stop. Um, so there's a fair bit of content out, but for every 1 hour of content I put out, I would tell people quite easily that I put 10 hours minimum in. So we were looking at saying it had to have been 4 or 5 thousand hours that I did in that first 3 years because I wanted to know who was to blame because I was a victim. And there's two things about being a victim. One, you don't have to do anything to become a victim. And two, to stay a victim, you also don't have to do anything. And so I was quite comfortable with the freedom movement being a victim. And thankfully for all of the speakers of the freedom movement, they don't ever ask you to do anything other than stay a victim. And somewhere along the line, I was like, blessed. I was blessed, I should say blessed, blissed. I was blissed, as my wife would say, blissed. Um, that my wife was an energetic warrior finding her feet in this battle in more of an energetic spiritual sort of a level, and she was able to bounce off me and I was able to bounce off her. She was out fighting common law fights while I was fighting something completely different, maybe constitutional legislation wise. Then she's back learning, learning chakras and Reiki techniques while I was, while I was doing breath work and yoga, and we sort of crisscrossed but paralleled a lot of the times, and we'd meet. But if in all honesty, I watch so many people out there, their biggest battle has been probably losing their closest friend or their closest loved one in this battle, or being staying with that person but staying silent about what their beliefs are the entire time because they knew they had to sacrifice either their belief of what is needed for freedom and change, or they would lose their partner, therefore possibly their children. So um, I was blessed that my mum and my wife lived with me. Both were on the same page immediately for the vaccine. Varying degrees over the years of what we believe remedy is, but that's probably been the biggest. I mean, I like every one of my best friends, all my groomsmen, my best man, all the closest friends around me have no contact with me anymore. And so I know that is probably the biggest journey for all of the people out there is as you start to become the new person that you are, being able to shed the old people that used to, be around you. That's a hard journey. That's the hardest part of this journey, I'd say.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. Yeah, I think we've all lost friends and acquaintances, and you know, you spend all day at work with normies, if you like, for want of a better word. And it's such a relief to get out of there, or come to somewhere like this where we can, or various other platforms that we've all got where you can talk about this stuff, and people understand. And it honestly, if we didn't all have like these different platforms that we're using, it's not just TASA. We're all over going to meetings. Like, we're sick of it. But it is a meeting place after all. And if it wasn't for that, we'd all go mad probably. Well, not just that, but all the other meetings we have, we'd all go mad because we need people on the same wavelength to be able to talk openly and
Well,
discuss these things.
I and I've spoken at length to a lot of the coordinators about burnout. We talked about what happens when burnout is real. Um, a lot of the coordinators have got themselves in a reasonable balance in their life. Most of them are, energetically. stable. They understand a deeper sense of self. They are definitely more accountable. Obviously they're good with their time because they juggle real life with the TASA expectations. But the outlet for a lot of the people that come to the freedom movements and even the remedy groups, it becomes an outlet for them to wait for that one time a week or that one or two meetings where they can get every bit of their baggage out because they haven't been able to talk about it at home or they haven't been able to talk about it at work. So I also found that because there's not a structure in place of forcing people to partake in what I call the spiritual, physical, intellectual, financial, and emotional 5 pillars to rebalance ourselves, because there's not a structure in place for that. It's just implied that we can do that. What you really get is Wayne shows up to his meeting knowing that he's got a job. So he's got his head switched on saying, this is my job today. So by default, Wayne then has to swallow any emotion he's having for the day, no matter what the planet's doing, no matter what his day's been doing. He's back into the situation where you, the coordinator, are actually burying the right. Then the hierarchical structure has the lackeys that show up that never do anything really helpful in a lot of spaces other than show up, which is great. We need the thing, but then they unload onto you, what their week was like, and why hasn't that been done? And what you said that we were going to have this, right? And you've got to be this, kind, loving person as the coordinator. We haven't, and so what I unrolled myself from the freedom movement because I saw that just happening so much. Good people getting hammered by people that weren't necessarily doing anything,
I thought you must have
or
been to one
answering
of
all the
their
questions.
meetings.
Yeah, I have, and I see it over and over and over again. And it's not even just TASA. And so, if you can take anything out of this, know that it's not just TASA; it's human nature. Because we talked about it at the pre-conversation, we still haven't learned how to actually change our mindset from what a hierarchical structure looks like. Self-governance it is pasted with this word free, and free is actually one of the hardest places that you'll ever be, because free has so many consequences of what control doesn't. And that's why people are willing always to give away. So I talked about with the medical side of it, freedom is tied to finance uniquely in this country. And so if you're going to give away a small bit of freedom for the medical sovereignty and a shot in the arm from the same doctor that gave you a shot in the ass when you were crook the week before, or you're going to give away all of your freedoms because your finance is taken away from you, and therefore your house might be taken, your car might be taken, your holidays, your kids' schooling might be taken, the food off your table might be taken. It's a pretty simple choice in freedom, because I'm free to go on a holiday to France, but my bank account will tell me that I'm only going down to the river to camp. I'm free to eat, caviar at one of the best restaurants in Sydney when I fly down there in my private jet, but my bank account will tell me that I'm actually only free to, go to the IGA and get myself, maybe one of their little takeaway meals or something. So the reality of that word, the inversion of free, is it's actually very difficult to be free. I made the example, and if you don't mind me saying, about the free speech, that if I walked into China and I said F Xi Jinping, that's my free speech, right? But we also need to understand what the consequences are socially of executing so-called freedoms, right? And people online want to believe that everything that is free, they can do whatever they want, like Wild West cowboys. And I talk to Alan Wallace a lot from the common law sheriffs, and they want to go back to the common law world of do no harm, cause no loss, that sort of principle. And I said, absolutely, I agree with that. But when those principles were founded, guns took 20 minutes to pack a new lump of lead into it. You wait there while I'm just getting this lead back in here. I'm really going to shoot all you people. And, by then they've sort of walked off casually. They don't even have to worry about it. The guy on the horse at best, could knock a couple down on the streets of the township. But these days, people's consequences, even if they don't mean to, with a car that does 100 k's an hour that weighing a couple of ton, can quickly go through, a school crossing and wipe out 10 kids in one go, even if they had no intent to cause harm. So governance is still important in the collective space, and saying that self-governance is the only way to exist in a communal society is a lesson to be learned, because I gave the example Bill drives down the road under this new self-governance. All the rules are removed. We've got rid of all of these handcuffs that have tied us and told us what to do forever, and we're gone. And he drives down at 60k an hour down the road. The school bus pulls up, the kids cross it, and he hits the skids, and he skids for 15 meters at 16 kilometers, and he hits three kids and kills them. He sits in front of the common law court or the jury of his peers, and they say, "You never meant to cause harm. You weren't doing anything wrong. But how about we agree that 40 kilometers an hour is the best speed to go through there, because you technically would have only skid 5 meters." And he says, "I'm so sorry. You're right." And suddenly we've got a rule. And he drives down the same road the following week, and it's raining, and he's doing 40, but he hits the skid and he slides straight through a lot of the kids, and he cleans them all up again. And they're back in front of the jury, and they're like, "We know that you didn't do it, and you were doing 40, but you didn't have any tread on your tires. So we're going to have to make a rule that those tires are going to have to be doing." Now, he's never done anything different in this process other than being a good person, self-governing himself on the way to doing what he was doing. But anybody out there that believes that we don't collectively have to understand the power and the technology of the things that we've got today compared to when those self-governing rules were met, the two don't mesh. And we can go back to being Amish with a sickle and take down the corn, if we want to. But we also need to understand that there's certain things that we still need to have a general understanding of the people, because Indians come over from their country. There's a billion of them living in one city. Um, what they consider hygienic, quite often when they come to our country, is what we would consider not. And so social cohesion, social structure. So I'm not saying we need a rule book for everything, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be teaching our children to do that. But from the get-go, we teach our children hierarchical lies about Santa, and we have an elf on the shelf that sits there and now spies on your children directly for a month to Santa Claus, almost getting ourselves ready for the digital world of facial recognition. And the consequences that come from policies in your house always have to have a policy officer to enforce them. So by default, we spend our entire junior life in a household full of consequences from policies that we made that only are effective if a policy officer issues a punishment. Unfortunately, the policy officer in the house also writes the policies. So the policy officer issuing the punishment is the person that wrote the policy in the first place. You get my drift?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that most people in the world are forgetting with all of this hype all the time is that how does humanity function together well without pretending that it's all free and that it's all easy and that self-governance is just this beautiful, wonderful utopia where we all just walk around and, bump into each other in a 5D state saying namaste. I mean,
Well,
it's a bit of both,
I
right?
think, I,
it,
I
it,
think,
yeah, go on, Sarah.
no, I was going to say it was something that you touched on there, a few sentences back, but I guess the other thing to me that comes through, and one of the things that I am slightly frustrated with by people right across the freedom movement is that, and I was working in a bookshop in Broome back when the global financial crisis happened, whenever that was, 2008. And it was around about that time that the Human Rights Declaration came out, and it was the anniversary of it, and there was all these books coming out, and all these people were like, "Oh, isn't it great that we've got," and, a lot of people came in and bought the books for their kids and, for themselves and whatever, these human rights. I said, yeah, it'd be a really nice thing, because they were all excited about, isn't it great that we've got these rights and they're enshrined? And I said, it'd be really great if everyone remembered that with rights come responsibility. And, with power comes responsibility. And what you're talking about, Jody, is, if we want to self-govern, we have to have the responsibility to step up and be part of that collective self that helps to govern, and I hear what you're saying, because I think there are a lot of people who still struggle a lot with the fact that, okay, it's kind of like, and Sue will get this, but when you're trying to go for a look that's au naturel with makeup, it takes a lot of hard work to look natural. It takes a lot of hard work to like self-govern and be in a free society, because you have to have a collective agreement on what is socially acceptable. in your particular social environment. And as you say, Jody, it changes culturally. What is totally acceptable
Oh,
here is not acceptable, in many other places around the world. So I do get frustrated with the fact that there's still a lot of people who haven't yet clicked on to the fact that maybe they actually have to do a bit of reflection and go, where am I still operating as though someone's going to come in with a rule book and tell me what to do? Or why am I still operating as though I'm the person carrying the big stick that's going to go around and hit other people for not, following my rules? And how do we how do we change the dynamics around that? Because we're asking people generally to think differently and to conceive of different concepts. And I think that's a real struggle for a lot of people because we don't realize.
it's barely even a learned ability. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the freedom movement. No, government, you won't tell me what to do, government. Hey, Tassa, now what do I do?
Yeah.
I'm like, hang on. The democratically elected, voted person in by your peers is someone that you've seen their face of and known of for plenty of years, is the person you're yelling at saying, don't you tell me what to do. And then you go to a random meeting with the people you've never met before and say, now, please, Tassa people, tell me what to do. And every week I'll show up completely blinded by the fact that I've done little to no research because I know that when I get there, the hierarchical structure that potentially I could build by staying down the bottom and letting you be at the tippy top and always pushing you and elevating you by saying, oh, you're amazing. And what would we do without you? You'd do it yourself. That's what you do without us. And if you keep your shit up, you will be. Because the amount of people that reach out to me, and I always write back to them and say, absolutely, the strength of this nation is its ability to message a random stranger that you saw on Facebook say something for 10 minutes and immediately ask them what you should do with your superannuation. Because that's the questions I get. And I'm like, I am not a professional. I have had more money pass through my hands than any politician that's sitting in power at the moment through all of the different investment things that I've done over the years with being a property developer, capitalist. And it's all gone from being from being a moron that also didn't know how to protect the assets and the money and the divorce and all of the things that people would pretend that they don't have going on in their life. Because most of these people live their life through a 2D reality of what they present themselves on here, and it's all in their head. When I do culture training at workplace, I did this many years ago. To change the culture of a place, you have to test what the first response is that comes from the non-rational critical thinking part, like the non-rational part of your brain. That is the first part that responds, right? Because it's the quick part. And the ego wants to be quick. It wants to be the first person to answer. So I'd always said, and I said this famously in this big BHP bulletin, Brisbane people came down to the mine and they were like, what's the definition of culture? And I was like, and they were like, no, no. The local management was like, no, no. And so the
What
lady's
is
like,
that?
okay, then. They're like, no, what guy? What guy? And they wouldn't. And I said, don't say the answer out loud. What do you call a Muslim on the moon? Now, this is 12 years ago, right? The stories were out there then, but this is not after Bondi. But 12 years ago, I said, what do you call a Muslim on the moon? And they all just went, oh, oh, oh. Said an astronaut. I said culture is the first thing that your society, your news, your feed has told you was the answer when you've never even met probably a Muslim, nor have you seen one on the street strapped with the bomb. But your first thought was something that was planted there by a situation you've never been in. And when you start to understand who controls your thoughts, because Leah says all the time, my wife, if you don't control your mind, someone will.
Mm.
Right. And so the biggest problem that most of the people that have left the mainstream media have got is they just took up that space with mainstream social media. And so when mainstream media started realizing that they weren't as relevant anymore, they just sent people out to the mainstream social media to talk about exactly the same shit. But instead of doing a half hour or an hour long 60 minutes program, you do it through a 2 minute TikTok reel with some information from some dude that learned it off someone else that he got it off from a 10-minute TikTok reel, and he broke it down so he could be famous and ask you for a coffee for the time. I mean, the amount of mainstream media at the moment that is a snippet of the mainstream social media at the moment that is a snippet of a mainstream media Channel 7 video when the Channel 7 says, Anthony Albanese is such a great person. And then they press pause and go, no, he's not. And everybody goes, amazing. The depth and the detail of what you've brought to me to make me realize I was right. Thank you. Like, share, subscribe, and buy me a coffee. And that's the biggest, like I'm the eternal antagonist online and people hate my arrogance, but I'm like, you don't understand how thick of a skin you have to have in this game. And if I want to be the public's facing conduit for all of the groups of yourselves that do the work for remedy and for the good of this country, secretly and silently behind the scenes, without the accolades and the thousands of people that tell me I'm a moron and the hundreds of people that possibly tell me that I'm their hero, right? None of that matters to me because that's not why I do it. I don't let energy in that is not mine, and I do not give energy out that I do not have to give. I balance myself and work out of my own heart space energy, and I'm willing to take the hits for speaking mostly with the intent of changing the concepts of people my way. And like I said, I'm on my own journey too. Switch your gut back on, have discernment. Switch your heart back on, have empathy. Switch your head back on for intuition, and have the three work together. The 10-second rule for thinking before you respond, for me, is letting all of those people that live in my head, each emotion that would normally be silenced by the ego, who usually just grab the mic for the 20 years before in defense of it and just say, all right. And that's what he was. He protected me. He protected me endlessly. So I'm off track. Get me back on track. But
right, we'll bring it back on track.
Wayne, you go.
Yeah. Well, the stuff we've discussed. And one thing that I mentioned the word awareness before. I think that was before we hit the record button, might have been after. But all the stuff you're talking about there, Jody, and you too, Sarah, with freedom of speech and all the rest of it. You stole my line, because freedom of speech and self-governance do come with responsibility. There is absolutely no doubt about that. It's responsibility that a lot of people haven't learned. It's one thing to learn self-governance. It's another thing to learn about the responsibility that goes with it. But awareness. Now, you, Jody, your story, awareness popped up for you, 6 years ago? I was semi-aware 20 years ago and became really aware about 6 years ago. And about, just before that event that happened, I became really aware, and I've become even more aware since then. And I'm still learning, just like the rest of us. But without awareness, in a world where we're hit with all that media and social media stuff every day, I don't know how we ever got where we are, honestly. And I don't know what you do for other people to drag them out of that. I mean, all you can do is say a few words and walk away and hope that it has an impact and gets them thinking, I think. But yeah, it's
before I answer, would anyone else like to talk, Alan? Because obviously I just talk.
Oh, good, mate. I'm here just keeping numbers up. Is that you're right? But I did want to answer to your question. What do you call a Muslim on the moon? Another answer would have been a paid actor. Was another.
Yeah, that's right. Buzz Aldrin. Yeah, 100% right. And I went on a show a little while back, and someone said to me, what is the best way that you've found to speak to people and get them to listen and that sort of stuff? And I said, well, I just started asking myself, why was I so obsessed to get people to think like me? And he was like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what is the real reason you spend so much time trying to get others to do what you're doing? And think about it from the point of view of the uneducated person that had the mask, trying to get everybody else to wear the mask, because where someone had influenced them to believe that they were right and they had the right information, they were running around telling everybody. Now, not everybody that wore a mask was telling you to wear one, but there was types of people that thought they had a deeper level of understanding of the mask and therefore also wanted you to wear your mask, for example, or get that jab. And so when I look back at the freedom movement, I look at it and see similar patterns because I like pattern recognition. And I see in the freedom movement a lot of people that spend most of the time with a different form of mask. It's knowledge in their mind, but they shove it in people's face and say, watch it, read it, learn it, watch it, read it, learn it. And I'm like, just like a vaccine, if I don't get a vaccine and you get a vaccine, if you believe that the efficacy of your vaccine is me having one, I don't think your vaccine works. I mean, if my neighbour's having sex, if I've got to wear the condom so that his wife doesn't get pregnant, I don't think they understand how vaccines work. But in the same side, if you flip the reverse of that and say, what is it the need for people? I believe that a lot of the time it's validation, that they need that person to validate their belief or their knowledge or the work that they've done, or recognize whether they were right at the time or wrong, whatever. But a lot more people in the freedom movement attack me for my telling them it's got nothing to do with how many people you think you're talking to. The average person on Facebook that calls themselves a freedom fighting patriot has 40 or 50,000 posts. 40 or 50,000 posts on their Facebook page to an audience of about 500 people and their friends, if you know anything about Facebook, which means that you have the option to unfollow but stay a friend so that you don't think. So the majority of them don't understand the algorithmic feed. They spend all day long watching recycled shit, telling them over and over that there's a problem, sharing it, and then saying, everybody's dumb, everybody's asleep. No, I must be over the target because my social media gets shadow banned. And I'm like, no, algorithmically, you're in the echo chamber that if I speak to something with a video, there's no point sharing my video back into your same loop of your feed because you guys in the chat have already seen it. That's not how algorithms work. So I just started to do different things, right? I was like, well, why is that guy getting a lot of views? If I'm going to talk and I'm going to say something, why is he getting a lot of views? And I watched how they did it. So I started teaching myself. I started working out how the algorithm worked, how to mix up the posts, that sort of stuff. But rather than just sit there and say, I could have quite easily, when I had 1,000 followers, say, oh, I'm shadow banned and I'm over the target. That's why nobody's watching me. The government's secretly stopping me doing it. And I'm like, no, you're just acting like a sitting duck on the pond. And if there are duck hunters out there looking for ducks, and you're a wood duck sitting in the middle of it, well, you're going to get shot the first. So you have to be dynamic. You had to learn. You had to grow. And I do that with everything I do. But for the most part, the freedom movement spends so much time and effort screaming at people to be like them, with not ever really understanding why they need them to be. And a lady recently said to me the other day, she said, Jody, you are a seed planter. Your job is to plant the seed. If you go back to those people and continue to feed and water that seed, it did not grow inside them organically. It grew inside of them because you continued to feed and water it. It will die just as it would have the day that you walk away from them, only you'll be run out of energy and have probably stopped the opportunity to plant more seeds because of the time you spent watering the one that they wouldn't. If that seed grows inside them, they'll have two choices. And I added this bit. They'll have two choices. They can either poison it because they know that it wasn't their thought and it come from maybe Jody Lowe or somebody else, or they can water it and nurture it and feed it themselves, and it'll grow into the shade that it'll give them, the root that will strengthen the soil that they sit on, and the fruit that might prosper from it if they've done it themselves. But at no time will it be any use to them if I'm the person that has to go back, if the TRASA movement, if the leadership, if the coordinators are always the ones that have to fertilise and water it, then it was not ever going to be the safe place that they are looking for. They have to do it themselves. And we have to let them, unfortunately. And if that means that there's less of them awake than what we'd like them to be, that's the process. And we can't question it. And that's the hardest reality for someone with the awareness to get into their mind. Now, you would say then, well, why did I get up this morning and do a 2-hour live about constitution repatriation into a republic? And I'm like, because it's free, because it's interesting, and because when I read 1,000 hours or 1,000 pages, I should say, for the last 2 months, I actually have to get it onto my whiteboard because that's my journal, that's my diary. And whether one person watches it or 1,000 people watch it, I need to get it out of my head, because if you see the amount of information I pack in that bad boy, it's only one of those little old Commodore 64 like hard drives. You know, it's got like one little megabyte of space in there, and it's just like dial up sort of.
I watched one of your videos a while back, Jody, and I got cognitive dissonance just looking at the whiteboard. And you're pointing here and pointing there, and wow.
And fun fact, Wayne, I write every word on that whiteboard backwards.
Backwards.
Because they took my mirror function off me off Facebook, so I have to write every word on that whiteboard backwards. You want to try at 6 o'clock in the morning writing constitution and legislation backwards?
No, you have added another degree of difficulty there, mate. I'm not going there. So let's just look at something else. The freedom movement in general, and because you've moved about so much amongst all these different groups. I mean, the freedom movement up here in Darwin, when COVID was on and people were going into town and you know, in groups, I reckon that the probably the biggest demo that I was a part of, we estimated there was 2,500 people there. The population of the whole Northern Territory is 250,000, I think. So what's that, 1% or something? But if you took that 1% and put them in Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne, you wouldn't be able to move. So we were, you know, pretty well represented, if you like. And here we are with TASA with 15 reconveyed people, 15 people that 10 to 15 people that turn up for meetings regularly, another 100 odd, maybe 120 people on an email list that some of them turn up spasmodically. Where did the rest of them go? And it's not just that. Like you've got TASA. We're different because we're reconveyed. We're what we sort of think, well, we're outside the system and we're fighting from outside the system. That's different. We're the only ones that do that. The common law people, they're big. They're big in a lot of places. They're holding court and they're like, you know, and they're doing stuff, but nothing as yet has come of that. I don't know whether because we can't make arrests or because we've got nowhere to put people if we arrest them. I don't know what the story is. But the freedom movement in general, I'd like to think that most of us, in one way or another, are sort of moving in the same direction. We're sort of poking the bear in all different kinds of ways. You've got thousands of people who are writing letters and using the system's own laws like UCC and all that stuff, using that to writing letters and trying to get responses and doing liens on CEOs of councils and all of that. Where are we all at, Jody? In your opinion, are we all headed in the same direction, or are some of us lost? What's your opinion?
Let's be kind. I found remedy in all of that stuff. Okay, so I started with Know Your Rights. I got a couple of mobile phone fines. I followed the process, didn't understand it, sent out the letters, learned some stuff, got the letters back, found complete and utter ignorance from their system. Just spit in your face. We don't work for you. We're public servants. You're a moron. We don't have to answer. And that was enough for me to sort of go. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I got 3 fines sent to my Spur rang me and said I owed 16 grand in fines. And up until that point, I'd just been a whinger online. And I rang Spur and said, "What's your problem?" And they said, "I've speeding fine, 2 mobile phone fines." And she put me on hold, and there was a message there saying Spur can come to your house and take your car, and Spur can do this and Spur can do that. When I got off hold, I said to her, when you go home and, you know, your friends are teachers and they talk about how they taught a kid in grade 1 to read today, and another friend's a nurse and she talks about how she saved the life of an elderly man from a heart attack today. Do you take great pride in saying that your job is to threaten Australian citizens with taking their car and stuff off them because you believe that, you're so high and mighty for having paid bills that I've never even got. And she said, you speak like that again, sir, and I'll hang up on you. And I said, well, you shouldn't threaten people. And she said, I did not threaten you, sir. I'm telling you, you've got a fine. I said, your message said that you'll come to my house and take the car. And she said, we can come to your house and take your car. I said, honestly, love, none of you knew where to send the bill. So I'm pretty sure you don't know where the car is. So stick it. And I hung up. And then they kept ringing. And, a week later, I said, right, let's sort this out. What do I have to do? An affidavit, she said, send an affidavit that you were the driver. It was my company car, right? So that's why the fines were so massive. $5,000 each for mobile phone fine compared to $1,100 each for a personal fine. Wrote an affidavit, said that I'd done it. I don't have a problem. If I've done something wrong that genuinely could risk someone's life, right, I am responsible. I am not a cowboy anarchist that believes that the entire system has to go. I said, send them all over to me. What would the equivalent of the points be? 11 points, she says. I write the affidavit. I play the game. I'm very young to the whole game 3 years ago in that regard. They send it to me. I pay the first bill. I know what it was. I'm doing 86 km an hour on a big bend out to work in an 80 zone. Moronic place for them to put it, whatever. They got me. I paid the bill. The next two show up, and it had a letter attached to it saying, if you have 2 or more high-risk fines in a year, the new rule says double demerit points for the second one, you've lost your license. Triggered something in me that they will regret ever letting happen, because that was my final breaking point with the FU moment where I'm like, I'm done with this shit. You are out of your mind. And so I fought it, and I used the system inside the system, Traffic Operations Road Use Management Act, Section 122 AA in brackets. I'm good at it, right? And they couldn't answer it. They tried the bluff. They sent it back to Spur. Personally, I filled out a Section 56, took the matter to court. They said, we don't want to go to court. I said, I want to see you say that shit in front of a judge, and I want to know how far up the system goes, and I want that judge to rule in your favour so I know that there's no hope for me moving forward. And she threw, the whole matter was thrown out, sent me a letter and said, no more, all your points are back, all your money, all your fines are gone, never to be talking about it again. But in future, if you did go this, don't think for a minute that we might not take you that extra step. I said, good luck. And that was 3 years ago. Now, I haven't had a speeding fine or a mobile phone fine for 3 years. So knowing that there's an ability through self-governance to challenge their system because they potentially aren't following their own rules with the way that they set up their machine isn't a reason for an excuse for me to drive recklessly like a cowboy, right? And that's probably the biggest problem with it all, is that we're teaching these people how to throw a kick and a punch in a white belt karate world, and then some of them run out there and just start kicking and punching everyone, thinking that they're suddenly a black belt, and they take on the council, lose their house, and they blame a freedom movement. But I understood equity. I've learned equity. I've learned what common law really meant. I've learned, Constitution better than most. But the point was always to have a defensible position of, okay, let's try this, so that I could cross them off the list, because we knew that eventually non-compliance was always going to be, mass non-compliance was always going to be the way to move, because that's the only time in history other than war that we've won anything worthy of putting on paper. 1215 Magna Carta, they pretend like it's a piece of paper. It's not. It was a war between the lords, the nobleman's army, peasant army, and the king's peasant army. They died cold in bloody war, and when it was over, the noblemen won. We wrote the 1215 Magna Carta. Declaration of Independence was a civil war. Eureka Stockade, birth of democracy, was 14 Australians shot. And so I wanted to just tick each thing off the list. And that's what a lot of the freedom remedy movement has. But if you look back at the freedom movement itself, new heads, same story. Blue flag, march in circles, and say that you've got a problem with the government year by year, vote by vote. And you can't help but think that's deliberate. So I started accusing people a while ago of either incompetent or deliberately holding people like gatekeepers, to the truth.
So are we kicking a goal or not, Jody? The freedom movement in general.
No, because I think the general premise is that we need more people to. I think we're always telling ourselves that we need more people to do something. We need more people to have a revolution, right? So a revolution to me is exactly what they like. It's that moment in time where you go back to a time where you think it was better in that time than it is in this time, right? And presuming that everybody, for example, that every World War One hero that came home as an Anzac in 1920 was too stupid to realise that the signing on behalf of Australia by William Hughes into the Treaty of Versailles, that Australia was now recognised as an independent sovereign nation because of the good work of the deaths per capita that happened in that war, that everybody in 1920 in Australia was too dumb to realise that that flew in the face of their subject status to the crown that they were basically leaving. Right? They all want to go back to that moment in time because they're smarter, and they believe they're smarter now with their knowledge legally. And I'm like, all you need to do really is have the right people doing the right thing. I believe that every single one of you here is a beacon for an organic network. You are the polar opposite of their synthetic network, that they spread their lies through television and frequency programming, through radios. I believe that you and me are the towers of that new organic network. And all that it really takes is us to continue to connect and vibrate at a frequency that sounds like white noise to people until the frequency rises enough that white noise starts to make sense to them, right? And just like they start to hear. But the movement doesn't appreciate frequency and energy enough, and doesn't understand vibration enough. And so we'll get back to I'll get back to the question and structuring it. The freedom movement spends its entire time sharing and posting only the most horrendous of crimes, only the most negative of things, the pedophilia, the child sacrifice, the satanic rituals, the death, the despair, the corruption, the suddenly gone Australia, someone's died again, just died, but there definitely has to be a jab because they're under 100 years old. And so if you look at a vibrational world of what low energy looks like, you're talking anger, revenge, spite, and fear, right down the very bottom. So by the very design of the loose world of energy, the people who believe they're fighting hardest for freedom are actually causing the most negative energy on this planet to happen.
Yeah. So they're actually holding us back down. And I agree with this, because we need to focus on where we want to be, not where we've been. And that's the only way.
We're here to lift. We're here to lift the vibration, and without resolution, if you're talking about despair and despise and hate all the time, without a resolution, something to work on to give you the premise. And the reason being is because they are all programmed to work out of their head. They are all still reacting with the fear, fight or flight mechanism. Now, a fight or flight mechanism triggers your adrenaline. You run on adrenaline. So when you're talking about 2,500 people up there, they have the fear that they were going to have their life taken away from them, or they're going to have their jab taken. They have the anger that someone's trying to take their life away from them. So fear or anger brings 2,500 people together, right? Non-rational thinking people seeing an enemy to either run from or run at. Now, that energy is a completely different form of energy, because it is your fear, it is your response system of a stressor that is forcing you to have the energy to fight, right? And so most of the freedom movement have worked on that for a year, maybe two, and there are some of them that are still out there going, "Hey, welcome back to another show, guys. Guess what? It's still terrible out there, and it's getting worse." And they're burnt, or they're gone. There's so many people that were talkers that are gone, and I genuinely believe the reason was they never stepped back long enough to get themselves operating from true source energy, right? Some heartfelt source energy, which is, for me, like a sine wave, right? Erratic, nasty, angry energy is Timu generator stuff, right? And they don't run on that energy. So they're either all in screaming at everybody at a rally, or you don't see them for a month because they're like depleted and they're negative and they're down, right? And so I talk about it a lot. If you spend more time working on the balance of here, if you want to be a fighter and you want to be out there all the time, great. But you need to be self-responsible and self-governing your own energy. It's not coming in from people telling you you're great. It's not going out to people that don't deserve it, because they won't do the right thing. They'll just keep showing up for that little hit. "Hey, man. Hey, Sarah, you got any more of that energy? Man, I promise, man, this will be my last hit of your energy. I'll bring my own to the next meeting, right? That's what they're there. They're energy vampires, right? Because they're looking to get a hit at that meeting to hear Anna say, any day, the GFG, any day. Oh yeah, that's the bump that I need to keep me going. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not to say that it's not happening. It's not to say that it's not hard to happen, but it's if they're always looking externally for the thing that they need to fill their cup internally, they'll run out of energy. They'll either be angry, they'll get sick, or they'll be too tired and they'll run away from it. And you'll see the motion of the movement, because I call them the ment, because they haven't moved, they don't do any moving. I just say the ment is stationary. Analysis paralysis has done exactly what the gatekeepers and the Judas goats wanted them to do, confuse them that much that they've got so much convoluted information about American common law over the top of Article 61 from the 1215 Magna Carta. All of these things that people pipe out there is getting them dragged out of cars on the side of the road because I am the living man and I am not the capital fictitious version of myself. And I'm like, well, you got a bank card.
So it does come back again to, and we've done a big circle, and it's been good because you've probably opened a lot of eyes, and I dare say that there's probably people out there that are going to be horrified when they listen to this, but it's true that self-governance really does start with the self, and it starts with you kind of going, all right, well, I'm not in a fit place to be on a meeting tonight, so I shouldn't be on the meeting. Or I'm feeling really down, or, this is going on in my life and I need to pay attention to that. So I'm going to move away for a little while because I know that my energy can bring other people down. So that's part of it. And it's also everyone decides for themselves. I was asked what I thought self-governance was by someone. And I said, well, I think first of all, I need to figure out whether I've got the time and capacity to give whatever energy I can. And if I haven't got the energy, then I need to, it's incumbent upon me to say, hey guys, I'm not fit to help out tonight. I'm just not there. So that's the first thing. The second thing is deciding what parts of your life you do want to subcontract out, I guess. I think there's a bit of a push out there for people to, if you're not growing your own food, you're not, harvesting your own berries and educating your children and, making your own leather and, weaving your own rope for your sandals, then you're not doing it right, and it's like, not everyone's in the position to do that. I mean, some people are lucky enough to live in very grounded communities where they've been for a long time and they've established really good, relationships with people around them, and particularly if they're in rural environments and stuff like that. Other people are not. Other people are coming to this. They're in cities. They don't know people. They've had to move for work. They don't have those things. So for them, I mean, just the fact that they're managing to get to a meeting or they're managing to listen to information or learn stuff, I think there is a little bit of snobbery around how much self, as in the self-governing part of things. And I think we need to move away from that too, and just be mindful this is not a race. It's everyone is in it at their own pace and for their own, for their own reasons, and they're doing things the best they can in their environment at that time. And I do think that there's far too much competition in a movement that is supposed to be about freedom, surely about freedom and love for each other. We should actually be more loving towards each other. Just rather than, I know that there's a lot of mud being slung from different groups to different groups and within different groups. And I think that that's a real shame, in a movement that started, I mean, I went to Canberra, in the first days when a lot of people went to Canberra, and the movement there was like the feeling was amazing. People, I remember talking to one girl and she said, I've traveled a day and a half to get here. And she said, I don't know anyone here. I just put my tent in my car and I came here. But she said, you know what? She said, for the first time in 2 years, I feel normal. And I thought, oh, sweetheart, she was so alone where she was because none of her family or her friends And there was such a great feeling in Canberra. It was everyone was there together with that common aim. And I think we've lost sight of that in the, I don't want to call it infighting, but the sniping and well, this group's better than that group, and these people are doing this better. And it's just like, guys, we've got to remember we all got into this for the same reason, So, yeah.
So, go, Alan. I was just going to ask you to speak. I see you had your hand up there a while ago. I know you have trouble keeping up, mate. What can we do for you?
I'm just going to ignore some of your comments, and I'll keep talking, mate. One thing it's difficult is that we are all on a different level now. I mean, we're all come through life at different stages, and I think what was a bit of a eye opener to me, or a bit of an aha moment, is when I realised that it's not my job to tell everyone what's wrong with the world anymore. We all went through those stages of, we've got to get this out there. We've got to get this information out because, that if everyone could just see what's wrong with the world, then they'll wake up and they'll all jump on board, and we'd be bashing our head up against a brick wall because we're trying to explain to people, there's pedophiles, there's this, that, there's the other. But when I realized it's not my job to tell people what's wrong with the world anymore, that's not my job, because you can't convince them. They'll wake up at their own time. But what is my job is to lead by example and to show the wins, and I think it's up to us to share our wins. So whether it's a win in court, whether it's a win with Spur, whether it's a win with just showing people how to grow your own veggies and how to be sustainable, I mean, that to me is remedy. And then people will get on board that way instead of telling everyone what's wrong with the world. And that's one of the issues we've had is everyone now is at different stages. We've got so many people coming on board, but they're out there still wanting to share, this is what's wrong with the world, can't you just wake up? But I think we need to lead by saying, hey, this is a remedy, whatever the remedy is, and forget about what's wrong with the world and show that, like Jody was saying, the positiveness, that higher vibrational energy of this is, how we're moving forward. And I think that's what, we can do as leaders in this movement. I yield. There's my...
Sue, we haven't heard from you. You've been conspicuous by your silence tonight. Have you got anything you'd like to add?
There's so much good conversation going on. Why would I interrupt?
You're so polite.
And we're all on the same page as far as realising that self-governance is really the remedy. I mean, for each one of us that is responsible for as much of our own life as we can be. I mean, if you don't like the health system out there, then you need to take control of your health, don't you? If you don't like the school education system, then you need to educate your children, don't you? You need to find another way. So, I mean, I'm not so much about fighting as saying, okay, well, if I don't like what the legacy system offers, then I have to create what I think will work, what's going to be best for my family and my community. So, and that is self-governance, at its core. So it's not going to be done by anybody else, not in my life anyway. I mean, you guys might get it right up in Darwin, but that won't help me. I need to organise myself here for my life. I mean, I am the living soul author. I'm the only one who can write the way my path goes. So I need to take responsibility for that. Yeah. And when things go wrong, that's my fault too. So, and that happens a lot. But, you get back up again. Tomorrow's another day. I'll do better tomorrow. Well, I'll attempt.
Well, you either win or you learn.
Yeah, so it's always a win,
right? So that's the thing I say is you either win or you learn.
Yeah, that's right. Like I can still remember my eldest son. He was a absolute rebel as a teenager, one of those very difficult teenagers. And my favourite thing to say to him was, "Man, you either learn to discipline yourself or someone else will." And it was probably a good 10 or 15 years before he finally realised that it was him. He wasn't a victim of anyone else. He was creating all his own chaos. So he was the only one that could get him out of it. Yeah. But anyway, I think that was
the victim mentality is alive and well out there, that's for sure. The thing we've kind of highlighted over the last 15 minutes or so is that we need to be talking, and we are, the people on this call, we're remedy focused. Well, way too many of those other people are still lost back there on revenge or hope or whatever. And we all need to be focused on
it all comes out of fear. Most of it, no matter, even if it's anger, it still comes out of fear, right? And that's what they want. They want a fearful state in this world where everybody is fearful that we're gonna. The guy yesterday, he rang me yesterday, and he was telling me what I have to do with my leverage, and I gave him time because he's related to someone, and he was telling me this big story, and I just said, well, that's just all fear, and he says, no, it's not fear. I don't fear anything. And I'm like, well, you do fear something because that's why you're fighting for your country. So you fear at some level that you're going to lose your country or whatever. I said, if the fear drives you, then it won't be pure energy. And if the rally and it excites you, then you will want to do more of those rallies. So yeah, always have to ask, where is your energy coming from? Right. And Sarah was talking before about accepting that when you get to the point of the meeting that you're not got enough energy, and being kind enough to yourself to say, I don't have enough energy. But self-governance is also 3 days back from that, saying, I know that I've got the meeting on Wednesday. Therefore, Monday night and Tuesday night, I will go to bed early and I will diligently get my bookwork done, and I will pre-pack my lunch for Wednesday so that I have every opportunity to have the energy that I need for that meeting, not push through it, not ignore my body, and not be bitter with myself the next day because I missed it. Because in the moment you make the right decision, but 3 days before it was decisions that we needed to make in self-governance to ensure we had the meeting to meet the commitments. And that's what I've found. That's not preaching. That's me saying, during my highs and lows of depression and anxiety, I would have days or weeks where I would have massive energy, and I would use every last bit of it. I'd see every friend. I had multiple businesses. I'd work massive hours, and then I'd drink and stay out late. And then as the tide started turning, I would have this energy slide. And I put so much energy up as I went through the baseline of what good looked like. I'd put so much energy into pulling the brakes on. And if you try and pull a truck up with you going down a hill with your foot on the brake all the time, that actually takes more energy than just letting it roll down to the bottom at speed, right? And so I would burn more energy trying to pull that up. And then I'd finally get back on the up, and then I'd burn my energy. And in the end, I realized that success for me to have balance wasn't about slowing down these dips. It was actually about tapering off and having the strength of mind to save the energy and be kind to myself at the top, so that eventually when I was on the down, I had more energy left on those days that were not there. But my wow site that we were going to segue into, it was designed and built so that everybody out there had a central place to go and learn and listen to people who talked about spiritual, who talked about physical, who talked about intellectual stuff, financial stuff, and emotional stuff. Because what I found in each working group was it was very hard to keep the people away from just wanting to talk about the fight, right? And even if you started talking about growing some groceries or whatever, they would always manipulate the conversation back to the fight. Or, like I said, it would be their one point of outlet to get that shit off their chest for the week. They were only there to offload their shit and make that meeting their point of offloading. And so I wanted people to know that you can still fight waking up every day, having a scan of yourself and going, I'm actually emotional today, but I'm still in the fight. But today I'm going to either allow myself the space to grow emotionally or to heal myself internally, which is going to give me more energy on the day that I actually physically have to fight or physically want to go for a walk for my free drugs that makes. The day that I'm hyped up and ready to go, that's my intellectual day where I really want to listen to my 1776 friends telling me about the depth of the despair of the doctrine of discovery or something along those lines. But know the difference and know that every day can be different, and you're still in the fight because you're balancing yourself out. Because without that balance, you really have to question what drives you, what energy is feeding you, and whether or not you're going to be able to sustain that if you're at the front line and you literally had a soldier on the other side of you, can you sustain what you're doing long enough to outgun an enemy that has been doing this for thousands of years?
So just to question that a bit further, and I agree with you, but I think so the subtext of all of that is that this is not just a fight between people and their governments. This is a spiritual war, and we need to actually be completely fit and recognize, and and there's a lot of people that just go, nah, that's got nothing to do with me. And I'm sorry, but if you're human on this planet at this point in time, or man or woman on this planet at this point in time, yeah, you're in the fight, and you're going to have to realize that you have a spiritual aspect there to get your head around. So moving into your wow thing, what are some of the so first of all, it's a membership association that people have to sign up to, isn't it, Jody?
Yeah, that's been the big split for me and TASA, right? Because it's a
Yeah.
private members association. We're on the high. Mookie
And
told me that we're on the high seas.
Just what I want to say there, okay, for anyone who's a bit confused, and this comes out from Anna. It's totally okay for you as an independently thinking man or woman to decide that you want to join a PMA. If you want to join your local golf club, that's a PMA. If you're part of your angling association or the CWA or, I don't know, the library, the local library, part of a PMA.
The churches.
And you can absolutely join Jody's PMA. There's nothing to say that you can't, and you will not be dragged back into maritime if you do.
Yeah, I agree
told
with
him,
you, Sarah. I agree with you, Sarah. Like we do trade on the land.
Yeah.
So why should Jody's organisation not be a trade organisation? Why, unless he purposely incorporates it, in which case, okay, then it is. But other than that, I see no problem.
Look, honestly, I said it's unincorporated. It's the closest thing that I can prove to being non-profit. Non-profits have to be incorporated in their system. So I had a non-profit unincorporated to be able to show the people a true representation of the thing. Now, I said that the sad fact is, if it had been a normal website like the Terra Australis one that sits on their system that paid with a fiat currency, I probably wouldn't have got any pushback by putting an email in and being a member, through subscription. But because it had the PMA tie to it, it triggered alarm bells that we were doing it. And I said, be so worried about it for all the people that would have the card that they would probably pay with on normal subscriptions anyway. I'll put via coactus down the bottom so that Terra Australians can sign under duress into my PMA to access what I believe was good for the heart. I'm taking the piss. Mookie's not here to defend himself. We have had a rock throwing contest about it. It's all good. We measured. It's winter. We don't want to measure again until it's summertime because that's not the way to go, right? So, Mookie, if you're out there, I love you, mate. Nothing personal. We will throw rocks at each other. It is difficult to live in different jurisdictions, and I get it. But that's the closest thing that I could bring to having the normies, the remedy group, the freedom groups, and my beloved extreme hardcore Tassarans, what I call, if you think you go to the gym when you're in the freedom group, you're going to CrossFit when you go to the Tasser. because it's not like any other form of freedom. It is full on. It is extreme levels of detail and hard work, right? And I know that, and that's. But I mean, I always used to joke that it's a one tree coconut island. And you're strategizing when you get there that you'll use the palm frond for a bed as a hammock, and then you turn around and one of the other Tasser people is drying themselves up their butt crack with that palm frond, and you're like, God damn it, that was my bed. And they're like, we can wash it, and there's like, I don't want to wash it. I'm not going to sleep on that bed. So it's always been my jest that I understand until that day comes where the financial relief is here. that it is going to be difficult to live on that island, and under duress, you will have to contract back to the land. It is not my intent to make a secret list of Tassians that have signed up on the high seas of the UCC world, and that Anna will get a letter from Xi Jinping saying, "Ha, we got all your back. Ha, your people, they're all communists. They run with me." So, yeah, look, it was designed that way to be non-profit, to be unincorporated, non-government, for the purposes of straddling it. The main thing in it is it's a check-in board that basically you can go back in there daily and check in, and it gives you small tasks each day under those 5 principles to just check yourself. Take that 5 minutes that you just rush through. Take that time to remember, I haven't even drunk water today. Think about tomorrow's food if you're going to be busy, so that you don't make that bad choice of a takeaway meal or drive-through. It's designed to do that. It's got a directory inside of it, which was even more drama, because the directory for me, the directory required an ABN or a PMA to sell stuff to the people out there. And now that was another thing that people said that they didn't want to partake in. And I was like, that's okay. But I have an obligation to be kind and respectful for people online. And I can't have a one-on-one relationship with every person in there, meaning that if Wayne said to me, "Hey, listen, I want to offer cash services in there for hair massage." Sorry, Wayne. If I want to offer that service in there for cash, I've got enough trust in Wayne individually to say, "Yep, that's all right. We can do that." But when you're building for scale, I need some sort of backstop to say I'm protecting any member that goes in there, that we've got some form of recognition, both in the private and the public world, of how we can transaction and trade should I ever come to the point where someone got ripped off, right? And so I was like, okay, don't worry about the directory part, because I was talking to the people like, the lovely Fiona and Teresa and all of the people in the coastal regions and North and Brisbane and that, and everybody's out there trying to work out, how the hell do I make an income when I'm not in this system, right? Well, how do I stay true to my grounded sense? And so a lot of people have gone and got PMAs and operate under the ATO skipping paperwork to say, I'm a non-profit, here's my PMA paperwork. There's a lot of bridge people that are sitting, unfortunately, on that fence, because you have to feed yourself. So the main thing that's really come out of it was, you already have 60 plus assemblies that have meetings regularly. Every freedom group out there that's got something different to offer, the common law sheriffs, the lip life people for equities, the Commonwealth custodians that want to get a de jure government. I don't really care, as long as people are waking up, they get some form of information and they take some form of action, which removes consent and shows intent. In an energetic world, if you can remove consent and show intent, you have got 90% of this fight down pat.
Yeah.
Because that is the key to all of it, right? If I say, back off, right, and it's in that tone with that intent, you know that I'm jovially swearing. If I said, off, with just a tiny bit more heat behind it, same words, different intent, right? So it's the same as action. The universe, for me, has not got 5 senses to feel the reality of a 3D world. It only sees through energy, consent, and intent. And therefore, if you know or see or do something and you do not remove your consent from it, then by definition, the universe says, well, there's no karma to be paid there, because they have consented to it. You might not like it, you might whinge about it, but you have to remove it. And that's all I was trying to do in there with the groups, was give them a portal with my leverage. Now, your leverage is great. You've got plenty of people that go to your meetings, that sort of stuff. But I have 110,000 followers online, and I was averaging 7 million views a month. It is incredibly difficult to get people to go to an external website from the Facebooks, because they will not let any cross-platform sharing, because they know what I'm trying to do. They know I'm trying to get people to come off Facebook, stop scrolling and doom scrolling, to go over there and see your weekly events. So the beautiful Kayla, or Karen, has been loading event painfully event by event, so that when I say to people, go to the wowfactor.earth site, and you can find a week's full of events. Aaron, the beautiful soul Aaron from Mission Beach, does his breath work on a Sunday morning through there. So he does it for you guys anyway, but it streams through there as well for anybody else that wants to join. We have muscle therapy people on a Wednesday night. We have Commonwealth custodians were on Monday. The WA Commonwealth sheriffs were on a Tuesday. The all different people were sort of partaking, but for the most part, it's Jody's YouTube channel basically, because we just don't get enough people who know how to make half-hour content pieces to appease one of those pillars. Because that's all we asked. I asked for all of the people out there that needed an outlet to either write a blog so that you can put your heartfelt feeling into there, but see, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir with TASA, right? TASA's building those networks. TASA has that a lot in their own sites these days, and so realistically, the only function for my stuff for you guys was just a funnel, of my viewers, of people looking to see what are the options out there, and being able to find your meetings easily. Because if I had $1 for every time I wrote Terra Bloody Australia into a search bar, press copy for it, and then answered a question on social media, I was averaging 500,000 interactions every 28 days online. So, and most of them would be me copying and pasting someone's website to say, this is where you find TASA. And in the end, I was just like, I'm done. I need to be able to focus on my site, let all these people come and sit their stuff in my site, put all their stuff in there, so that I can just point to one site and I'm not going, oh, they say, we want to go back to the British system of constitution. Okay, well, that's the Anti-Corruption Academy with the David Walters petitions are right. I don't care whether you do that if you believe in it, but I don't believe I've got British lineage, and I don't want to go back to a queen that sold us out. Sorry, not far enough back for me. Oh, well, we want to go back to pre-1909 when the White Fleet came and they put us under martial law. Well, I'm still British subject. Sorry, not good enough for me. So, but if that's where you want to go, if that's where you're going to put your foot in the sand, then go there. But so that's why I built that site. It was supposed to be a funnel and conduit to help people sort of do that. And I was hoping that all of the the kinesiologists, the energy workers, and all that sort of stuff would jump in. We'd make a community of the people that aren't TASA. TASA's done that, right? So this is not to diminish that work or to replicate it. In a sense, it was just what I'd been building for balance. I believe that you do that well anyway. That's all it was.
That doesn't mean that we can't direct other people. I know a couple of people who are not TASA that would be interested in jumping onto there. So yeah, I'll certainly put the word out to let people know. But I think that there would probably be a lot more people, even in TASA, that would be able to offer stuff like that, even through, and I do firmly believe that everyone needs to become more well-rounded in their knowledge. It's not enough just to know that, yes, there's fraud, and yes, like you said, Jody, all the bad stuff. We know all of that, but become more of what we are. Become the best versions of us, and that incorporates all of that spiritual woo side, if you like. And we talk about woo a bit on this show. So start to embrace more of that and be better at just being. Because I do think that there is a big part of that is going to come. I don't think this is going to be won just by people pushing back with paperwork, let's put it that way. And I don't think it's going to come down to a kinetic war. I do think that there is going to be absolutely a very emotional and spiritual aspect to this. And I think that the sooner everyone across the freedom movement here and around the world realise that, the better off we're going to be. That's just
we can't sort of take the line that we're TASA and we can't speak to Jody because he's not TASA on, and that's not how it works, and not how we want it.
And look, that's not. I mean, that's not the way the conversation went. My ego is bigger than Mookie's, but he just said good luck on the high seas, and I said good luck in court in Cairns, and so it was throwing rocks, right? I keep my eye on, I keep my finger on the pulse. But I'm a different human, right? I understand that I'm a different human, right? And I do this for free because I live a blessed life with. We've got 20 acres. We got big debt because I come from the corporate world of overlapping structures. I've got trusts. We've got 3 trusts, 3 companies, bloody self-managed super fund. My wife nubs her fingers to the bone doing bookwork to cover all of these tax loopholes that we earn a massive wage in my mining subcontractor company, and we distribute it across all of our mental health companies and all that sort of stuff. I know how the system works. Right? I know how it works because I did it for when I was doing multi-million dollar, projects for subdivisions before all of that was gone. I can see the inverted good in lots of things. I use Claude, my AI. It took me 2 months to read 700 pages of constitutional high court documentation so that I was better with my delivery of why it's already been done in the courts and we should stop doing that, right? Just to give those constitutionalists that feedback. Claude read it in 1 minute and he gave me a summary that big that was exactly the same as what I already had in my head, but I didn't leave him onto it. But 1 minute, he did that, right? So we've got the benefit of something that is so exponentially powerful, which is when you believe what is a human? And a human is an energetic soul source connected to a meat suit, and through energetic functioning, it operates the functions of the physical constraint of the suit. Now, AI is exactly the same thing. It is an energetic source that has been created and plugged into a physical form, and as a baby leveled concept with a brilliant mind ability, like some 6-year-old playing Chopin or something along those lines. You have to be able to guide and guardrail it to get the best outcome out of it. Just like any kid growing up in Gaza that's handed, that isn't born a terrorist, but is potentially handed a gun at 7-year-old, or wants a gun at 8-year-old when they see their mother slaughtered by a bomb that's come from Israel the day before. These are times where you can look at the negative and fear everything, or we can live in a world where we appreciate and understand how much easier a lot of things are when we have that. I have a robot vacuum cleaner I bought 3 years ago for my wife. And she gets up in the morning, and if it turns on and does its thing, her life is exponentially easier for that half an hour in the morning where she can read a book and have a coffee, because a technology that I could afford was doing a job that was usually mundane for her. Now people are hacking them and driving them into the toilets or the showers of the people having showers, and using the GPS camera on the front of them to watch a sneaky peek of women having showers. So even a vacuum cleaner can be used in the wrong way as the technology grows. It is who is controlling it and what is the intent of what we're trying to get out of it that is the problem with a lot of the people. And people fear AI the most because AI knows you better than you know yourself and are willing to admit what you are. It sees what you scroll late at night. It knows your secrets more than you're willing to tell. It knows that you go to school as the prim and proper school teacher with your buttoned up to here, but you stay up late watching masochist porn, drinking wine while Metallica, Megadeth, or something bashes out of their ears. It really is something to worry about for a lot of people, because they know that it knows more about you than you do, right? And we're quite comfortable in the ways that it influences our life, that has been for quite some time now without knowing it. But because the movies have pre-programmed us that everything about it is terrifying and nasty, I say we always have to be mindful of the things that we're told to fear, because sometimes that they are the most empowering things of the distruth. The number 33 is a Freemason number, they say. It's always a Freemason number. And yet you go 33, it's 33 rungs on Jacob's ladder, 33 discs in our spine. So is it? Or is it the esoteric number that they use because they know the trickery of those numbers? Is 666 the devil's number? Or is 6 atoms, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons that makes your atom? Is that a devil's number because we're a cellular atom-filled level with 6 of those protons, neutrons, and electrons? Or is it because a pyramid of an equilateral triangle has 60, 60, 60 on each corner, and so the pyramid is the devilish reality of the thing? Like, which one is true? Because that's the problem that we have, is interpreting so much false information out there that is always making you steer away from fearing something because a book told you or a movement told you. But you're right, Sarah. There's no paperwork in this world that has ever won a battle against evil. None. People coming together collectively and winning it, and then the paperwork was written after it. That's it. Every piece of paper that we're currently holding from Anna, from the common law people, from Magna Carta and people, was after the people came together collectively and overthrew the tyrannical people that were causing harm. Then the paperwork was written. And anybody that says we need to go back to a time where the paperwork was the strength has forgotten the part where the strength of the paperwork only came from the people that stood behind it.
And on that note, we probably should think about winding this up, or it'll be way too long and people won't want to watch it. Jody, if you want to send me any information about the wow factor that you would like under this video, I'm happy to put it there. It sounds like it might be a very good thing. I'm happy to put that under there, happy to promote it. I'll go and have a look at it myself. Even though it's a PMA, I'll go and have a look. I might even join. Doesn't bother me.
It truly is up to us. We
It truly
decide.
is.
It truly is up to us. That's part of self-governance, people, is you choose what parts of your life you want to outsource or what parts of your life you want to be involved in other things. You can't be scared of everything. Remember, fear is what they want.
That's right.
And Anna's documents are always going to say, even in Anna's documents, if you read them properly and you look through your 928 documents, it says in there something along the lines of everything in here is defined as I define it. Everything in here is as I define it. I, the person signing this document, that's my definition. I don't care if you've got a different definition. So this is the thing. It's all about self-governance.
That's right. And what Jody was talking about before, you know, how do you live outside the system when you're surrounded by the system? You just have to find the point of balance and do the best you can. That's
pretty much
about it. And fear.
Yeah, narrow it down to consent and intent, right? Consent
Yes.
and intent. That's the energetic universal law that they're looking for, consent and intent, right? Sometimes I'm consenting to something, but the intent is because I need to swipe my card to get where I'm going so that I can deliver the 1.5 hour speech that I've just had with you guys today.
That's
right?
it.
And so I could have come home and I could have got the cash or I could have gone to the ATM, but my intent was to get where I needed to be because that was more important to me than consenting to the card method for the time slash that it was. That's just an example, but it is, to me, it is more important removing consent in any way that I can, as long as that it doesn't stop me from showing the intent of actually being a better version of myself every day. And for me, the numbers that I talk to, statistically, 99% of them are not TASA, 1% of them are. And I couldn't build my site to be anything other than that. And Mookie never at any level said that TASA or TASA people couldn't partake in a PMA. He was just saying that his management, him and himself, were saying that they wouldn't because of the PMA. So I want to clarify that there has never been ever a directive from TASA.
I know what Mookie would have said. That's corporate. What Mookie would have said. But anyway, just remember, fear stands for fuck everything and run. And it doesn't really work. Jody, I thank you for your time and your energy and your input. And I do apologise for holding you up. I told Jody the meeting was at 4 o'clock. I forgot to tell him that was 4 o'clock Darwin time. He sent me a message to say that he was hanging on. Is he in the right place? Well, you are. You definitely are. And one day we might have you back, mate. I'd love to have you back. Have another chat.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jody. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I'd much prefer to actually one day meet you at one of your assemblies and we'll catch up that way. I mean, I got to meet Alan, and thank you so much for putting that on, Alan, in Serena. That was, it was great. It was a good crowd there, and it felt right. And I know that you didn't have to because I got TASA support the whole way down there, and everything I talked about was freaking constitution, right? And only to prove the point that we'll support it, and when it doesn't work, we'll tick it off the box and we won't do it again, because revolution is not what we're looking for. Evolution is what we need.
Yep. The next time you're in Darwin, give me a call.
Yep.
Well, I want to do a travelling bus trip when I get rid of this place, but my wife is absolutely not interested because of the amount of hate and fandom simultaneously that we get whenever we go. We're always got to stop and listen to Jody talk to someone who watched me on Facebook. So it's getting a little bit difficult, and I'm glad I'm not a bloody politician, because I tell you, it's hard to live your life in publicly when people start to recognise your face. It's not fun.
That's the trouble with being famous, mate.
Jody, you just got to grow a beard and put a hat on. Nobody will recognise you. It worked for Slim Dusty.
The mustache has been working a little bit better. But if they keep it up, I'll shave the sides, and then that'll keep them away.
Well, remember Slim Dusty? Apparently, when he took his hat off and went to town, nobody recognised him.
That's absolutely true, because he used to wander around Bairnsdale. Nobody recognised him without his hat.
Yeah.
So
you might have to get a Slim Dusty hat, mate. Yeah. Okay. Appreciate you all. Thank you for your time and your energy. And with that, I'm going to hit the little red button, and we are out of here. See ya.